Nen jikten tamjil le, dejan jikten le mao yo, jikten tondin jikten na, jikten chime maku chot. Gerchen germe chunyen de, stogne marig nonam ji. Stye la so ba takdan tongwa kanyan termato. Pagbi shoyer toba kang, shibi shoyer tostonte, teni de shirnan joai. Nyengi taptan nyar jem chogo, tenen jikten tamchinde. Dejan jikten lemayo, jikten tondan jikten na, jikten chime makushot. Jirtar pama chananda, keba chi kuba meta, devjan danan jikten da, kejan jikten chumoku. Shab jivlar taqdab lo, mevjan danan barwa tang, jiv sanktan nyum jigla, taqda nyumbar jigba yin. Shungun jim pembi wangdang na, namto tamchir jari shir, tena lijin manbayi, tundan babab shid ma yin, tandang zikshka taqdang na, shotang sholam kijang rong, kanjik chirtar kangi ndar, Ti de testa nyata shi, Tester namki thali ji, rolar tagdal handrapar, tome lordan teyin, semjin ton de yangdang ji, shanchib sanhui tsirndan jitup, devjin shigbadan semjin. Yangtag jorwa la jikten nanam nyamba nyada testa mochir dardang jamso wanglar mugji ji chapra kanyin sangje dang shanchib sanhui chapra nyat chatte nyada
So, we'll resume our class on the Uttaratantra Shastra. And now, we are on the chapter of Buddha nature. That's the first chapter. And in this chapter, it includes the 10 kinds of meanings. And we are on the changeless aspect. And this one has 3 aspects. The first aspect is the impure, which is the mundane beings aspect, and then the other one is bodhisattva's stage, which is partly purified and partly impure, and then the Buddha's aspect, which is completely pure. So right now we're talking about the stage of bodhisattvas. Yes, we all have Buddha nature, but unfortunately, I think majority of us do not know what a Buddha nature is, and I think that's very sad. It's a pity that we don't know this. So, by studying this text, I really hope that we could then develop this very rational belief and rational faith, which is quite important. So, by studying this text, I feel this is quite valuable and really meaningful to lots of you, and I'm really happy about it. In fact, lots of people do not understand how Buddha nature exists within all sentient beings. And people may even think that this is only something stated in Buddhism, and this probably isn't the truth. But I think for scholars, academics, who may consider this text as extremely profound and difficult to study, could also benefit from this teaching, from this learning. And I think if we can study this text well, this would be one of the most important benefit or one of the most important gaining that you can receive in this lifetime. Because if you have just sense of sensibility and without logic, if your faith is without logic, then it's very difficult to develop the firm understanding, which is extremely crucial for Buddhists. So we should persevere. We should then pursue this teaching without any excuses. I've been reading lots of masters' biographies, and what I read from them is that let them be studying from Tibet, from India. The whole process, the course, is rather very difficult. And their spirit of such kind of persistence and such kind of insistence to receive the Dharma is really touching, and we should learn from that. Rather, look at us. It's very easy to receive the Dharma. And maybe because of that, you do not really cherish the opportunity of listening to Dharma anymore. Even compared to our generation, which was about, let's say, 2 or 3 decades ago, at that time, we had rather very humble, if not poor, conditions to study. I think majority of you won't be able to handle such kind of condition to study the Dharma. But maybe just because of such kind of conditions, the conditions are so difficult to endure, we in fact cherish the opportunity of studying Dharma even more. It's important to strive to study the Dharma, to cherish the opportunities to study the Dharma. So I really hope that you could then contemplate upon how difficult it is to listen to the Dharma, how difficult it is to obtain a human life, how difficult it is to meet a good teacher, so that you would cherish such opportunity. So today we're going to talk about how bodhisattvas, although they appear to have a birth, death, old age, and sickness, but they do not have the suffering that we would endure by going through such cycles in samsara. And today we're going to talk about the qualities of the bodhisattvas all the way from the first bhumi to the 10th bhumi. So the qualities have 5 aspects. Gyatso-je and the Wei Dynasty's translation didn't really talk about the qualities specifically, but they talk about the bodhisattvas of the Dharma characteristics, the second one of how bodhisattvas who develop a firm faith, rather than divide them into first bhumi, second bhumi, or third bhumi. But the qualities is then corresponding to their bhumis. So the first one talks about the first bhumi, and then the second then talks about the third to second bhumi, third talks about the third to the 7th bhumi, and so on. So for the first bhumi bodhisattva, what kind of qualities do they have? After the heirs of the victorious ones have realized their changeless state, those who are blinded by ignorance see them as being born and so forth. Over here, this translation might be a little bit different in Chinese, so I'll explain further. Anyhow, it talks about the sentient beings who are blinded by ignorance. They can see birth and death and so on. That's what it means. So the commentary, the Chinese commentary that I translated should be revised in two places over here, so you can note that down. Anyhow, what it means is that for the mundane beings, so the heir of the victorious ones who dwell on the first bodhisattva level have directly realized that the changeless true state, the nature of mind, which is luminous clarity. So they first time directly realize such changeless true state. They see that the true state is unconditioned, is pure, and its luminous clarity. Throughout of the other path, the path of seeing and so on, they do not see it directly. Rather, over here it says about a direct realization. And bodhisattvas, because they've already directly realized the true state, therefore they do not then truly go through the birth and death. However, for the sentient beings who are then blinded by ignorance, what they perceive is that the bodhisattvas would have birth and death and so forth, including death, old age, sickness. So bodhisattvas, they do not have birth, old age, sickness, and death. However, the sentient beings who have not realized the true nature, they perceive the bodhisattvas have a birth and so forth. And this kind of manifestation of birth and so forth is no other than manifestation of bodhisattvas, and this is quite rare and quite wondrous, because they themselves do not have birth and so forth, but the sentient beings perceive them as they do. Isn't that rare? Because the bodhisattvas, they are devoid and they completely abandon such birth and so forth. They only abide in this samsara to liberate sentient beings, and they have to manifest in such a way to make themselves believable. Otherwise, it's very difficult to believe. How can they be devoid of birth and death and so on? Just as how the leaders, if you want to be a good team leader, you have to then mingle and mix with your team. Otherwise, you stand out too much, and it's not so good, and you won't be able to work with others anymore. Just like that, that's how bodhisattvas are. According to the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, it says that to linger and abide within samsara, but freed from every craving and every fear, to work the benefit of those who ignorantly suffer, such is the fruit that emptiness will bear. How could bodhisattvas do that? How could the bodhisattvas be devoid of birth and so forth, yet still manifest in such a way? In fact, it is because they then have realized the true state that is changeless, as well as completely realized emptiness. But if we're not bodhisattvas, if we have not realized the emptiness, if we do not have great compassion for others, it will be difficult for us to even stay in Africa for 2 years. But for bodhisattvas who does, they can then abide in samsara for as long as they wish to benefit sentient beings. So sometimes I really think that bodhisattvas definitely do have a very different level of realization, and their manifestations could be very different. Pontsukhan Rinpoche once said that his guru, the way he views his guru was that his guru must have attained the second bhumi of bodhisattva through the purity of his students and his teaching, and how he then observed the discipline and so on. Pontsukhan Rinpoche thought of his guru as someone who have already attained the second bhumi. However, at time of his parinirvana, of his lama's parinirvana, Pontsukhan Rinpoche realized he made a grave mistake, because his teacher must have had attained the full realization of Buddhahood. So he felt quite regretful. However, nowadays, I think nowadays people would view their teachers as the devil, as a really bad person in this world. Don't even mention about bodhisattvas. And not only they perceive their teachers like that, they would perceive the sanghas like that as well. And some people may feel that why should I perceive him or the sangha as perfect? In fact, this is quite essential for you to develop a secret outlook towards everyone, because it is then first of all stated that it is quite important to view your teacher, to first to observe your teacher, make sure that your teacher have all the qualities of being a teacher, and then it is important to view your teacher as someone who is completely pure, because although maybe the teacher do not have the complete full merit of a Buddha, but if you could perceive the teacher in such a way, then the power of such sacred outlook would definitely come to fruition, just like how an old woman worships a dog's tooth with full confidence that that tooth is the tooth of a Buddha, and she attained realization through worshipping and through praying and supplicating to that dog's tooth. So there is some profound meaning behind that. Anyhow, the bodhisattvas, although they do not have birth and so forth, but they would manifest in such a way that when they abide in the samsara, and this is quite rare and quite amazing. The next one, it says that when they have attained the field of experience of noble, they show themselves as a field of experience of the children. Hence, means and compassion of friends of beings are supreme. They have attained the path which the mind itself is seen directly. And over here, the noble ones, this is the object of experience of the noble ones. So noble ones, sometimes it is referred to arhats, sometimes it is referred to bodhisattvas, and so on. And what does noble ones mean over here? It is in fact referring to the ones who have already directly realized the changeless true state, and they have completely freed from all the defilement. All the first bhumi bodhisattvas, they have directly realized the changeless true state, and they are then completely abandoned the birth and death and so forth. However, when they mingle in the crowd of mundane beings, they would then manifest as that they also have birth and death and illness and old age, as well as afflictions even. And they completely mix and mingle within the whole crowd of mundane beings. They manifest in the way that they're no other than mundane beings. I see none of you are yawning, but yesterday during a presentation, another teacher was sharing, and then some of the female were probably dozing off, and the other teacher was not happy. I don't really see many of you dozing off, or maybe those ones who are dozing off are sitting at the very back. Sometimes when I attend a class, and if I were to doze off, the teacher would then throw things to me. But now, because I guess we have the pressure, we're under the pressure of giving oral presentation after the class to repeat the content of this class, and because of such pressure, you do not dare to fall asleep. Maybe because of that. You can't fall asleep, isn't it? So to mature all the sentient beings, the bodhisattvas, though they have already attained the no birth and no death, no illness and no age, but they would still manifest so that they can fully mix and mingle within the whole crowd of mundane beings and become their best possible friends. Just as the hunters, prostitutes, butchers, and the kinds of sentient beings who are not considered as having good actions, virtuous actions, but the bodhisattvas would then bravely mingle and mix with them to benefit those crowd of people. And they would use many different methods, such as the 4 ways of magnetizing, or 4 means of attraction, such as loving speech, such as working with them, and generosity towards them, and so on. And why? Why do bodhisattvas do that? Because they have great compassion. Because if they were not compassionate, then they wouldn't ever to mix and mingle with the mundane beings and become their best friends. They would never do that if it were not because of their great compassion. And because of such great compassion, the bodhisattvas would use their wisdom to observe the sentient beings. And they realize they can only benefit the sentient beings through working with them or being with them. Therefore, that's why lots of bodhisattvas would manifest as human beings to manifest as human beings, and manifest as animals to benefit animals, and manifest as asuras and hell-realm beings to benefit those beings. But they would not suffer in any of those realms. Unlike the sentient beings, once they were then get into some difficult situation to help others, they would feel quite annoyed, they would feel lots of affliction and suffering. But the bodhisattvas are completely unlike that. They may manifest and appear to have such affliction, but in their heart and minds, they do not suffer a bit. They only manifest in those ways so that they can benefit the beings. That is why in the Sutra of the Heap of Jewels, where the Buddha told Madhyalayana, where Buddha said that I can help the sentient beings, I can cleanse their toilet, I can mow their lawn, and I can work as their servants. Any of the works that is considered as a low caste work, but I myself would not have any discrimination towards those kind of works as good or bad. So I think in some ways, if people were, if we can then learn not to care about how other people would look at us, would see us, would think of us, then maybe in such a way we can benefit others better. If we are a little bit more dull in terms of receiving other people's feedback in the way that, or then predict how other people would then feel and see us, then maybe we'll live a much happier life. Rather nowadays, I think because of people are so egocentric through the teachings of Western culture, I think people really suffer a lot from such self-centeredness. As then the Buddha said that I don't recall even once that when others asked me to do something, I chose to do what I chose to do what I like and refuse to do what I dislike. There was never a time that I failed to fulfill a task, and there was never a time that I failed to complete a virtuous activity. So bodhisattvas, whatever they do, they would never then do something that is not virtuous. They would never fail to fulfill a task that they need to do. So bodhisattvas, their first choice, their priority is to fulfill the tasks to benefit sentient beings. So they would not abandon any of the responsibilities that they start, any of the responsibilities they carry. Just as during the causal stage, the Buddha did not care about how other people look at him, how other people criticize him, slander at him, or praise him, or be nice to him. He did not care about how other people's reactions are. Rather, he stayed true to his intention, which is to benefit others. And if he then chose to benefit others, then he was extremely strong, because he was not affected by any of the praises or slanders. But I think nowadays the mundane beings are very fragile because they care too much about how other people think of them. So we should really then look at how bodhisattvas are. Sometimes they are sometimes the bodhisattvas manifest in the way that they are no other than mundane beings. And it's very difficult for mundane beings to differentiate who is the bodhisattvas, because the bodhisattvas are great actors. Unlike nowadays, just like how people nowadays who have malicious intentions, you can't really tell until at the very end when they express their intention, but before that you can never tell. Just like that, the bodhisattvas would conceal themselves, and unlike the malicious mind, they would conceal their great compassion, and they were in fact sent to the then maybe when you attain some level of realization, you will realize that, oh, that person was actually a bodhisattva who was sent by Amitabha, who was sent by Padmasambhava, or so on. Some people they would then honor the ones who are leaders, but do not honor the ones who are rather mundane. In fact, during our service to others, some of the volunteers, they have great differentiation. When the leaders are here, authorities are here, they would then respect them extremely, show extreme great, and smile, oh, you're here. But when they see people who are working for them, they would slander them and criticize them very very greatly. In fact, in Bodhisattva's eyes, they would treat everyone equally. They would treat the universal monarch the same as the beggars. Sometimes when I receive phone calls, there are people when there are people calling me, and because I would then say, hi, who is it? And then if it turned out to be someone who is rather of a high social status, then especially the ones who are in management of us, and then I would then have to try to conceal my attitude slowly so that they do not feel awkward or feel offended by my tone. But nowadays I feel that there are people who are not very good at that. They would first say that, oh, who is it? And once they figure out it's me, and they would say, oh, it's you. This is not good. This is a lack of equanimity. Of course, this is very difficult. I myself, in fact, I feel that I also make such mistakes. But I think we should try our best to show a sense of equanimity. Of course, when it comes to the ones who are of a higher status than you, and the ones who are of lower status of you, we should then try to treat them with a sense of equanimity. The next one. Then it talks about the qualities of a bodhisattva who has gained access to supreme conduct. So, though they are beyond all worldly matters, these bodhisattvas do not leave the world. They act for the sake of all worldly beings within the world, unblemished by its defects with in fact, we're going to talk about how the bodhisattvas would then stay in this world but not really moved by this world's activities. This is the bodhisattvas of second to the seventh bhumi or levels. They would not abide in they are not fettered by the three existence because of their wisdom, and they would not enter into nirvana because of their compassion. In order to benefit the sentient beings, they would use different forms such as birth, old age, sickness, and death. However, their activities are not tainted by any of the worldly poisons. In my schools, there are teachers who volunteered for over 10 years. They volunteer at the position of teaching the students at rural areas, at the poor areas. In fact, these kind of teachers, they really spend their life and time because they want to share the knowledge to such children. In fact, look at those children, they're very young. They do not have anything to offer back to you that would benefit you in terms of the worldly fame and wealth. However, they continuously to teach the children because they lack of the modern knowledge. It's just like bodhisattvas, because when the bodhisattvas see how ignorant sentient beings are, then they can't help themselves but to teach them and to benefit and liberate them without any intention of gaining any benefit from them. Just as how those volunteer teachers would tell me after that, I know that I'm not earning much or gaining any fame from this position. However, just by looking at those children, I cannot leave my post. Of course, We are not as great as Shantideva or as any of the bodhisattvas, but I think this is really a bodhisattva's action. In one way, the bodhisattvas would mix and mingle within the whole crowd of mundane beings. However, they are not tinted and defiled by any of the 8 worldly dharmas or fettered by the samsara. The mundane beings, however, are completely different than the bodhisattvas. Once they then mix and mingle within the mundane beings, within this defiled world, how they feel, in fact, is that especially the novice monks and nuns, those monastics, they would shave off their hair first day, and the second day they say, I'm ready to go out and liberate sentient beings in Africa. In fact, they are not ready yet. They still need some period of time of practicing, of studying, and of experience as well. They need some time to hone themselves to be the kind of person who can help others. But the bodhisattvas who abide in this world to benefit sentient beings for a long period of time, they're not like that. And then it gives the metaphor where it says that within the world, unblemished by its defects, as a lotus will grow in the midst of water, not being polluted by water's faults. These noble ones are born in the wood, unpolluted by any worldly phenomena. So the lotus flower would grow out of water. The more they stay in the water, the prosperous they would grow, unlike such as a piece of wood or paper or lots of things that if you were to leave them in water for a long period of time, the color would change, they may even rotten. But the lotus flower is not like that. The lotus flower would grow in the water, and they're not going to be polluted by the water. Not only that they're not polluted, they in fact would thrive because that they grow in the water. So in this samsara, in this world, the things that have the most pollutants, just as the bodhisattvas, they would appear to have lots of pollutants. However, as these bodhisattvas would manifest in such a way, but they stay in this world that is full of pollutants, but not being tinted by it, just as the lotus flower. So there's I'm quoting from Avatamsaka Sutra, where it says that enlightened beings, various methods and techniques adapt to worldly conditions to liberate sentient beings, just like lotus blossoms to which water does not adhere. In the same way, they are in the world, provoking deep faith. In fact, there are sentient beings. In fact, some bodhisattvas, when they are alive in this world, it seems that they are exactly the same as any mundane beings. They have something that is in common with the sentient beings, and some are uncommon with the sentient beings, according to the resting mind. And what is common is that their birth, old age, sickness, and death. However, what is uncommon is that their wisdom, their compassion, and their skillful means, and the abilities, and so on. And especially the ones who would go out to the world to propagate the Dharma, you can see the differences. There are people, there are groups that when they have deep aspiration, they have very firm aspiration to enter into this world that is full of defilement, In fact, the more they stay in this world, they thrive even better. And there are the ones who do not have, they lack in faith, lack in firm aspiration, and once they enter into this defiled world, they then got rotten or wither really quickly. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra the other day, we studied the bodhisattvas. Once they enter into dark places and places that's full of ignorance, they're not going to get tinted or darkened because of such ignorance. Yet they would then lighten up the world and sentient beings. Pontsog Rinpoche
怎么讲？就是有一个他在那个当时在国外就是有
When Pontsog Rinpoche went
演讲，
abroad,
演讲就是那个
he
里
gave
面
a teaching
就是也提到了那
where
个
he talked
就是
about
当时那个项目金刚，莲花生大师的这个身边的这个项目金刚，就
this
是他的话
Mara
呢就是
subduing
因为当时这个
Dorje
发愿力，就是他的这个发愿力非常这个强大，
because
所以
who
他
was a
后来的
disciple
这
of
种这个
Pamasambhava,
转世啊，就是
and
应该是弘法利生的
he
这种
had
这
great
种
aspiration,
愿
and
力，
because
就是
of
更
his
加的这种
aspiration,
就是强大，就是就
he
更加的
entered
就有不
into
共的特
this
点，就是所以
world
像
of
有些
samsara.
菩萨
Not
有
only
些发
the
心人员的话呢，跟
Mara
自己的
subduing
原理还
Dorje
是有
did
一定的
not
关系。有些很想当这
tinted
个
by this
做
world.
弘法利
His
生的事情，但始
aspiration
终是
got
就
even
是
more
一直
steady
未
and
远不
firm.
足，就是很多
Unlike
就以
I
前的
think
时候，我们这里
nowadays
的有
how
些发心人
how
很想度
people
众生，
who
但是呢，就一
vowed
直是
to
有时候
liberate
身体
sentient
不好
beings,
啊，
and
有时候心
sometimes
情不好啊，有时候
they
是
get very much
跟别人的这个关系不好
affected
啊，
by
反正
lots of
就有
conditions
很
such
多
as
事情就是
emotions,
慢
such
慢
as
慢
the
就
health,
就一直
sometimes as
就
interpersonal
这个弘法利
relationships
生的
and
事业
so
就
on.
是展开
That
的不是特别的
is
这个理想。有些
those
呢
kind of
好像
conditions stop them from
就像刚才访问的
propagating
这
the
个
Dharma
就是
and benefiting
教也一
sentient
样的，
beings.
就可能牵涉
I
的
think
这种发
it
愿
is
和精神
because
当
of
中
the
的这种
difference
殊胜的
of
这个因缘聚合在一
inspiration
起吧，
and
就
difference
是短
of
短
the
的时间当
auspicious
中，
conditions.
就可以说是非常的这个出色啊，
There
就
are
也
people
有
who have
也有
both,
这样的，
and
所
they
以
did
我
really
们可
well
能
in this lifetime,
每个人
and
呢就
some
是要这
did
个弘法
not.
利生，要做未来的
So
菩萨的
if
话
you
呢，
were
就发愿就是还是很重要
If you
的。
made
下
the
面也会讲这
aspiration
个
of
发愿
being
的
a
重要。
future bodhisattva, I think it's quite important
那么
for
下
you
面就
to
是讲
make
讲
firm
什么呢？就是
aspiration.
像这个第
The next one,
第
the
三个
third
啊，就
one,
是不
which
退转菩
is
萨的
the
这个
qualities
功
of
德啊，不
bodhisattva
退
who
转菩
has
萨的
attained
功
the
德。
level of
承办就
non-returning.
是所谓
Viewing
是
the
就是
accomplishment of
心
their
很
task,
如
their
忽然
understanding always blazed like
很长
fire, and they
如
always
静
rested
静
evenly balanced
静
in
于
meditative
灯之
stability,
中
which
啊
is
就是
peace.
他这样的这个刚才二地到七
So
地之间的菩萨的功德
We've
已经讲了。
already talked
那么
about
第八地
the
菩萨，八地是不动
qualities
地，
of
就是这个不动地八地的菩萨
second
呢，
to
他
seventh
利众生的
bodhisattva,
这种
and now
这个
we're going
信
to
呐，
talk
就是
about
利
the
众生的
bodhisattva
这
who
种
have
信的
already
话，那
attained
就
the
是很
bhumi
长
of
的是无有这个
non-returning,
亲者无有变
which
化。
is
不动地
the
嘛，不动
bhumi
地的话，那肯定
of
很这个
non-movability
很
or
坚固的，就是他的这个
non-moving.
信呐。
And when you
就什么样呢？
attain
就是
such
他的这
bhumi,
种这个
it
利众生的信呐，就相当于是一种
such
叫什么
bodhisattva
这
do
个
not
豁
have
然，
a
就是我们
mind
这个
of
有这个
swiftering
就
or
非常那个怎么说，就是那种
change
干的
anymore.
奴才，就是让
Rather,
就放在那
their
个火力
mind
特别大
is
的货
like
堆上面的话
how
呢，那
dry
就自然而
wood
然地就
meets
开始
the
这个燃起
fire.
来了，就是
Their
不需要任何的庆祝啊，就
their
如果我们的
ability of
木料也比
benefiting
较适
sentient
的，
beings
然后
is
火也
just
很
like
小，
that.
就这样的时候
The
呢，我们
fire
有时候
would
出去
naturally
烧
then
茶的时候呢，
blaze
这个火
without
也
any
是什么这
deliberate
个
effort.
就木材也是是的，就是这样怎么吹，
Unlike nowadays,
就这
where
样，
like
但
wet
一直越
wood,
吹越就
when
是
we
慢慢细了，
meet
就是
a
这个
little
就是尤其是
flame
过
of
那个
a tiny flame,
生火的时候呢，不能就是一直动
and
来
if
动
you
去，
were
一
to
动就
blow
化
to
就
it,
火就
and
熄
then
了，
it
就
will
只要
just
自然
naturally
这样放着的话
go
呢，
off.
那就慢慢
So you should
那
not
如果我
really
们这个木
blow.
材都是干的，然后
So when you
就
lit fire, you should not
火非常
blow
的这
very
个
hard at
猛啊，
at
就
first,
盛旺，就是自然
and
的
you
那
should
个时候
collect dry
就根本
woods
不用我
and
们上
have
面加
a
一点这
flame.
个木材就可以。
Um,
那到了八地菩萨
that
的
is
时候，
how
他利众生呢，
eighth Bhumi
不像我们一
bodhisattvas
样，
are.
我们一定
When
要利众生，我一
bodhisattvas
块
such
把电
at
话，一
the
块
eighth
做事情啊。
Bhumi, they
那
in
就现
fact
在我们这个
are
利众生还是很辛苦
spontaneously
的，就是要建
accomplishing
立什么
like us, we have to try very hard. We have to build the teams. We have to then have lots of meetings in terms of different projects. We have to then do different plannings. We have to then make different goals, different directions, different methods. We have to make discussions upon different types of things. But eighth Bhumi Bodhisattvas, they just need to cross their arms and wait. As I told you, that Pantsog Rinpoche, yes, on one hand, they would go around to every places. In his manifestation, it seems that he then did feel tired. But on the other hand, he didn't really have to do much. But naturally, the causes and conditions would be very auspicious, and his activities would be then would be effortlessly accomplished. Unlike how many people nowadays, they would go around and search for disciples. Pantsog Rinpoche naturally just gather lots of disciples without much of work, really. Some people, I notice, they in fact are quite, they work quite hard. There was a time that I went on a trip to Taiwan and Hong Kong with a group of people. To me, it was rather very easy because I didn't really give any teachings. But the other people in my group, they didn't really feel that. They felt it was very tiring to go from one monastery to the other. Sometimes I see that they make phone calls, and sometimes they then do different things. The requirement was not to see any disciples, rather it was a tour group to then study from different monasteries. I didn't have disciples. I didn't see any disciples at that time, and within a week of time, I was I usually would line up at the end of the line. I would only just chant to do my chantings, but at that time I felt it was very relaxing for me. But there are people in my tour group, they had this this eagerness to then spread the Dharma. They were then making phone calls and so on. Anyhow, I think without attaining the eighth Bhumi, and people do have to work very hard to gather a crowd of students. But bodhisattvas, after attaining eighth Bhumi, they are quite relaxed. And the bodhisattvas who would abide in their meditative samadhi, meditative absorption, and their activities are effortlessly accomplished. They do not have to work too hard, but at the same time, they benefit limitless amount of sentient beings. Their mind, on one hand, is constantly steady. Eighth Bhumi Bodhisattva is such a far-fetched for all of us, so I believe that you must feel very envious, as we all are. I think this is quite important to remember. This is something that we should keep in mind, which is to keep a steady emotion. Maybe it's because of the modern karma, the collective karma of people in modern days, or maybe because nowadays people are very superficial, their minds are very turbulent. Maybe it's a time thing that we are in this modern age, that people have this kind of collective illness. According to the official data, we have over 10 million people who have autism, and for autism patients, their emotions are very unsteady. Sometimes they would appear to be anxious without able to communicate to others why, and sometimes they would be very happy or be very angry. And autism is not really explainable with the modern medicine. There are people also say that autism is the cause of imbalance of the body, but sometimes it is because of our previous karma. Really, in the morning I received a guest, a lama who came from my hometown. We got into this talk. We were talking during breakfast, and we were talking about this neighbor that we had when I was at my hometown. In fact, at that time, there was a young child who was roughly around my age, and usually when the child was rather normal and steady, then he would be very respectful towards the Lama. But sometimes out of no reason, this child would react and would be very angry and start smashing things around. And then the Lama went to see a different master and asked what is the reason and what is the problem. And the master told him that he was reborn from devious spirits, so there's really nothing much that you can do. And this morning, then I asked the Lama, how is that child now? And he said that he's a little bit better, but he's a little bit better now, but he definitely created lots of suffering towards the family. Of course, maybe it's a very rare case. Of course, I'm not saying that we have the extreme steadiness that eighth Bhumi Bodhisattvas have. However, we should maintain rather stable emotion. So from this aspect, for those of you who do not have steady mood, who do not have steady emotions, then you should at least make supplications and so on. Nowadays, in fact, it is not. Nowadays, the modern medicine usually would say that it is because of the health issues, the health conditions, but sometimes it is probably because of your previous karma, and sometimes because of the evil spirits' influence. So, as practitioners, I really hope you could maintain a steady mind stream and steady emotions, even that you cannot. Or you have not attained the eighth Bhumi yet, whom the Bodhisattvas maintain a very steady and attained the stage of immovability. So that's something that we should all strive for. That was the eighth Bhumi Bodhisattva, and now let's talk about the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva and above. And this one talks about by the power of their former prayers, and since they are free from all ideation, they do not exert any deliberate effort to lead all sentient beings to maturation. Over here, it talks about how for the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattvas, all the way from the first to the 9th Bhumi, they've already made aspirations. And by the power of their former prayers, they can then, free from all the ideation, they can exert all they can, and they do not have to exert any of the deliberate effort. So that, and then they can lead all the sentient beings. 10th Bhumi is the kind of bodhisattvas who are almost attaining the 8th bodhisattva, who are almost attaining Buddhahood. They've already eradicated all the obscurations. So, on one hand, they, because of their aspiration, on the other hand, is because of the elimination of afflictions, and therefore they can then mature limitless sentient beings without any kind of deliberate effort. Isn't that admirable? The sentient beings the sentient beings have to work very hard to dig the well in order to then get water. They need diligence, they need hard work. As how young people nowadays, they say that diligence is the mother of success. However, for bodhisattvas at the 10th Bhumi, they do not have to be diligent and work hard anymore. They do not have to make any of those deliberate hard work. They naturally would fulfill and lead the sentient beings to maturation of fruition and liberation. These heirs of victorious ones know precisely how and by what method each should be trained. Should be trained through whatever teaching, form, pious conduct, way of behavior are individually appropriate. They use two ways, and one is through the speech. So bodhisattvas, after viewing the sentient beings' suffering, they would then speak of the kind of different kind of teachings based on the sentient beings' capacity, such as the Hinayana or Mahayana teachings accordingly. And sometimes they would then appear into different kayas, different kind of body. They would appear as mundane beings in front of mundane beings. They would appear as beggars in front of beggars, and appear to be animals in front of animals. They would then practice different kind of actions and conducts, such as the 6 paramitas, the 4 kinds of methods of attraction, and Tantrayana methods or actions, and so on. In fact, all of these kind of conducts and actions are behaviors that are individually appropriate in order to liberate the different sentient beings. Just like Ponsaku Rinpoche, when sometimes even he just makes some kinds of jokes. He did not make those kind of jokes for frivolous reasons. Rather, he made those jokes in order to benefit others. For disciples who have great faith, and they would view the teacher's each action as a means of leading them to liberation. So for sentient beings, also acting spontaneously and without hindrance for sentient beings whose number is luminous as a space, such bodhisattva who possess understanding truly engage in the task of benefiting beings. There was a story how Mara's palace was shaking, and he then came to human realm and realized the Buddha made a prediction of a group of people who would then attain Buddhahood. he then told the Buddha, saying that I would rejoice you if you were to make the aspiration of becoming arhat or attaining arhathood. But if you were to then make the aspiration to, or make the prediction for this group of bodhisattvas who would attain Buddhahood, I do not delight in that. And then someone told the Bodhisattva, saying that, well, Bodhisattva Manjushri, don't you have such luminous penetration? Why don't you just swallow the Mara as well as his palace then? Then Manjushri said, that's not the action of Bodhisattva. And he then said that this is what a Bodhisattva would do. He then used his numinous penetration and transformed the Mara into a Buddha and sitting on a lion's seat, and blessed him to start giving teaching of emptiness of the profound correct Dharma. And because of the blessings of Manjushri, the Mara could not run away and can only follow the orders of Manjushri. And because of the teaching of Mara, 500 bodhisattvas attained the state of non-forbearance, the realization of non-forbearing.
然后这个文殊菩萨说是凭我的这种智慧和身边力的话呢，不说魔王，就是无亲我的时候，我可以让他
Then people were really in awe of the numinous penetration of Manjushri, and they asked him, wow, how did you do that? Manjushri said that not only him I can bless, not only that I can bless the Mara to give the correct teaching and manifest into a Buddha, I can in fact then bless the insentient object to give the teaching of the Dharma. And not only the insentient, I can even bless Shariputra, who is an Arhat, to give the teaching of Mahayana teaching and become a Buddha. And then he did so. Shariputra, as much as he wanted to then run away, he couldn't. So he, through Manjushri's luminous penetration, Shariputra and Mara is sitting on the lion's seat, manifesting in the Buddha's form and talking towards each other. And then 800 people, on hearing the conversation between the Mara and Shariputra, attained liberation. So through the blessings of Manjushri, the Mara liberated many sentient beings, and an Arhat, Shariputra, also liberated many sentient beings. Those are all through the luminous powers of Manjushri. So bodhisattvas, they have many different forms, many different transformations or manifestations. Therefore, they can then use all these kind of various forms in order to benefit sentient beings. Therefore, we should not point fingers at anyone, at anything. Even the kind of people who have broken their vows, or who are seen as terrible people, or who have bad reputation and so on, we should not do that. In fact, we should develop a sacred outlook towards all sentient beings. This would be the best method of working. So always acting spontaneously without hindrances for sentient beings whose number is limitless as space, such bodhisattva who possess understanding truly engage in the task of benefiting sentient beings. In fact, the bodhisattvas do not differentiate the beings in this world. They will not differentiate who's friend or foe, who's from different countries or so on. In fact, they would benefit sentient beings. that is as limitless as space. Sometimes we really want to benefit sentient beings, but it's very difficult if our so-called help is helpful or not. Sometimes I wonder if my class is meaningful because I wonder if my teaching is beneficial to others. But bodhisattvas are completely different, and they would definitely be able to benefit sentient beings from any and all of their activities. Then the next one start to explain the difference as far as accomplishment of the two benefit is concerned. So the way the bodhisattva unfolds activity in the post-meditative phase equals the Tathagata's action in the world for beings' true liberation. So the post-meditative stage, after they enter into the post-meditative phase, they would benefit sentient beings. They would carry out such activity and with respect to leading others to complete maturation in the post-meditative phase, and they are equal, such as Bodhisattva has attained a particular quality of the 6 types of clairvoyance and 10 kinds of mastery. So it talks about so over here it talks about the aspect of benefiting others. Asanga in his commentary did not talk too much over here, but in his commentary, it gives a metaphor where it talks about how a bodhisattva went into a city where it has everything, and this person at the gate of the city, the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva is only one step away from Buddhahood, just as this person is only one step away from getting into this city that is full of all sorts of enjoyment. However, this person at the gate of this city of enjoyment, he has an only son who is still far away. Therefore, he then went back to get his son, to take his son to this city to enjoy all such kind of enjoyment altogether. Just as bodhisattvas, although they are only one step away from being fully enlightened Buddha, but once the bodhisattvas see that the sentient beings are still suffering, they cannot then give up their only son, that is the sentient beings. So the bodhisattvas, they temporarily do not enter into this city of nirvana. They then still would abide in this world in order to then bring his only son, that is the sentient beings, together to liberation. So, in terms of the self-benefits, the qualities is the same. The qualities of benefiting self is rather very similar. The 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva and the Buddha. However, the benefit of the ability or qualities of benefiting sentient beings are rather very similar, but when it comes to benefiting self, it is very different. Now let's look at this one, how the benefiting self is very different. Though this is true indeed, whatever difference lies between the earth and an atom or else between the water in the sea and in an ox hoofprint is different, is the difference between a Buddha and a Bodhisattva. So the earth and an atom, it has great difference, but when it comes to a sea and an ox hoofprint, the water that an ox hoofprint could contain is of grave difference. The emptiness of bodhisattva, the emptiness that bodhisattvas realize realized, and arhats realized, they have a grave difference, just as the sea and water in an ox hoof print. And over here it talks about the bodhisattva's quality is quality of benefiting self is of grave difference of the bodhisattvas. The 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva, over here the bodhisattva refers to the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva. If the 10th Bodhisattva is like that compared to the Buddha, then don't even mention about the first to the 9th Bhumi Bodhisattva.
做到就是最虚伪的这个障碍没有端住，最这个高的这种无我呢，就是没有这个正我，因为这个原因的话，它还是住在这个轮回当中啊。但一旦就是到了这个菩萨佛的这个过位的时候，那所有的这些功德呢，
complete emptiness is not realized. That's why they are still abiding in this samsara. They're not completely like the Buddha yet. So previously we've already finished talking about the bodhisattvas. That is partially defiled and partially pure. Next part.
然后再下面，这个，下面可能明天的课
So from tomorrow's class, in fact, it talks about.
明天我们的课的话呢，原来发往如意宝可能
in fact, in next
的地方呢，应该是明天的课结束的时候，从那个地方吧。
will include the content where during which Ponsogo Rinpoche's teaching is where Ponsogo Rinpoche passed into parinirvana. So let's see, tomorrow's class is quite crucial. After tomorrow's class, Ponsogo Rinpoche didn't give any more of the teaching on Uttaratantra Shastra. So we should observe the causes and conditions, the conditions. So